Welcome back for another installment of Fellowship of the Rink. We have quite a bit to get into here today. We have the Gopher Hockey season on the horizon. Opening night is this Friday against Michigan Tech. We'll talk about that a little bit here. We also have a little bit of news in the Minnesota Wild world. Kirill Kaprizov, record-breaking deal. Joe Smith jumps in to talk that and really final roster thoughts as we close out the preseason. And we have a lengthy interview with Eddie Olczyk. Awesome guy. He probably sat there and talked with us for hours if we let him. And we did address the Kaprizov situation. We recorded with him a couple weeks ago. This has been banked for a bit. So leaving it in there because it's still interesting conversation, but obviously we'll be covering the positive side of that, the excitement around the new contract in our Minnesota Wild segment here with Joe Smith coming up. But let's kick it off. Gopher Hockey. We're back. And there's no immense preview that I'm going to sit here and do for you today. We've had Bob Motzko on over the summer. Eric Vigo was on a few weeks ago and did a little bit of a proper preview. We had LJ Mooney on this summer when he's here for the World Junior Summer Showcase. So if you're looking for the deeper discussion around the Gopher Hockey season that we are so close to kicking off, go check out all of those interviews. All available on your podcast feeds and on the SOTA POD YouTube channel if you just want the interviews. What I will say is this is a very interesting year. Gophers are coming in as a top 10 ranked team. They lost some very, very notable names. We all sat here and kind of hoped and wished that a couple of them might be convinced to stay. Jimmy Snuggerud, obviously the headliner. We all knew he was leaving. It is his time. He's already a top 6 forward in the NHL, and he's only going to make more of an impact moving forward. But you lose guys that you kind of lean towards thinking they'd leave because the teams are going to push them. But all of the guys I'm going to name moving forward are guys that still had room to grow and could have potentially benefited from another year in college. That said, if I was a 20-year-old kid and someone's waving millions of dollars in front of my face, who knows what I would do. So I do not second guess any of their decisions. Like, I support and respect all of them, but you got the Blackhawks boys, Sam Rinzel and Oliver Moore. Both have been getting a lot of looks in the preseason. Both also played in the Tom Kerber's Prospect Showcase, both looking pretty interesting. But big losses with the two of them. We lose Matthew Wood to the Nashville Predators. We have a couple of graduates, of course, but those we all knew were going to happen. But the other signings, let's see, we had Chesley, of course, going and signing with Washington. That's one that I wasn't 100% sure how it would go, just because there's clearly not an immediate path to the NHL for him. But and the last one, the one that really caught me by surprise, was Connor Kurth. I thought he was going to come back and be a leader for this team this year. And again, the opportunity to go play pro hockey, whether it be in Tampa or Syracuse, it was just too much room to pass up. So that gets us to this year's team. I am very interested to see what the line combos look like, how Bob Motzko is deploying this crew in the opening weekend. A little bit of a tune-up, tinker, try things out, and make sure that we have everything squared and ready to go for a big matchup the following week with Boston College coming to town. The key players that I'm watching, we've got the leaders that are returning. What is Brody Lamb going to do? Is he going to show us the peak Brody Lamb that we saw several times throughout the season? Can we see that more consistently? Can we see him put the team on his back? And of course, Brody Zemer, this is a guy that, I don't know, you've all heard me swoon over him all season last year. The combination of skill, grit, just drive and determination, and that switch that gets flipped so quickly when he goes into FU mode and just decides he wants to take a guy's head off. Then we got the blue line, right? We got to talk about, obviously, a lot of departures if we're going to go off percentages on the blue line, but you still got big names. You got Luke Middlestat and Cal Thomas who are going to pave the way. And then the question is, between the newcomers, the rookies, the freshmen, and some of the returners from last year that were in and out of the lineup, who is going to really put their stamp early on and say, I need to be in the lineup every night, and here's the role that I fill? I'm going to have a lot more after this weekend to say about where I see some of that filling out and who I think long-term, regardless of what we necessarily see this weekend. I'm excited to just see how all this plays out. I don't really have much more to say other than get excited, because while this team lost a lot of players and we're not a top, 3 or 4 team like a lot of Gopher fans prefer, this is a team that's going to get overlooked a little bit. And I think they are going to be a rude awakening for the teams that choose to do that. And we've got a fun season ahead with really all the Big Ten teams being fairly competitive. We got one and a half exceptions there, but Penn State and Michigan State beefing up and bringing in several CHL notables ever since, of course, this August. Those players all became eligible to transfer and play NCAA hockey. It's going to be an interesting year to see how all of that works out. But even beyond that, the Michigans are going to be interesting. Ohio State has been a steady team that you don't want to play, really, the last couple of years. It's going to be a really fun season. I am excited and here for all of it. Plan on attending majority of the games in the press box, but of course, a late October due date for kid number 2 means that there will probably be a handful of games and weekends that I will not be able to get out and cover. But excited to be on the ride here with all of you. I hope any of the Minnesota Wild fans that are here listening tune in, support the Gophers, or hey, if you support the other Minnesota teams, I'm in the minority that I don't segregate. As long as they're not playing against the Gophers, I will pull for all the Minnesota teams. I just want to see someone from Minnesota win a natty, please, for the love of God. But for me, if they're playing head-to-head, Gophers every time. Here we go. But check back in next week. We'll have a lot more to talk about on that front. But for the time being, let's kick it over for some monumental news on the Minnesota Wild things with Joe Smith. It happened, Joe. We have now the richest contract in NHL history signed by one Kirill Kaprizov. How did this all come together?
Well, I think as Bill Guerin put it, good things happen to those who wait. And I think for Wild fans, it was too long of a wait, but these negotiations do take time. And there was never any indication, at least from Kirill's perspective, he wanted to leave. And there never any indications from the Wild side of the Fuse that they didn't want to keep him. So, difference was, I guess, $1 million difference from the offer he was given 3 weeks ago to the one now. A unique bonus structure, of course. But I think the biggest thing from today, obviously the money is one thing in a very high number, but him committing the next 8-9 years of his life or his whole rest of his career to play in Minnesota and is a signal and kind of a validation to what they're trying to build here. If he can believe, and he said today, one day it'll come when they'll make a playoff run and win a Stanley Cup. If he didn't believe that truly, he would not have signed here. He could have waited. He could have waited next summer, had many teams in no state income tax states with a better pedigree of winning the last 10 years. So he made the decision for the rest of his career to sign with Minnesota. So that should be the biggest takeaway for me, for the Wild fans, is this guy, the best player you've ever had, believes that something can happen here. $17 million is a lot, but the cap's going to go up, and this number won't look crazy ridiculous in 2 years. This number won't look crazy then. It looks big now, but it is very much big. But I think that's the indication there, and is that he feels there's a chance to win here. He's been happy since he got drafted. They treated him well. He likes the team, the core, the area, everything else about it. So that's a good sign if you're the Wild, because he's not a replaceable guy. And if he didn't sign, it would be devastating.
It absolutely would. And so now, obviously, the immediate reaction from Bill Guerin is obviously just like a sigh of relief. Once that fades, what does this mean now for him? Like, is the pressure more on now that Kaprizov's here? And it's like, okay, we know what our path is. Time to deliver. Like, how quickly is he going to be expected to turn this into that contender?
Well, it's a lot better than if the hindsight. Like if this is
Yeah.
the other way around, like they'd be rebuilding from, this is year 3 of a 5-year plan, it would start over again. So I think he said today correctly is it doesn't end here. Like it starts here. This is where you got to continue to build around him, Matt Boldy, Brock Faber, Z Booyam, Gustafson. I'll probably get an extension at some point here during the year. He's probably number one goalie. And they do have some flexibility, even with this Kaprizov signing in coming years, to add. And there's a lot of guys who will be available potentially next summer if they don't sign, right? There's Panarin that's out there. We think Eichel will sign in Vegas. McDavid will probably sign in Edmonton. But, you have flexibility in season moves to make. And like you pointed out, like great players want to play with great players. And so having Kaprizov as a guy you could say want to play with this guy, I think it'll attract more players to Minnesota with the cap space. And if they go, let's say, win around this year, all of a sudden it's a different look and dynamic to what this franchise is.
Beyond just attracting players that want to play with him, how big of a statement is this just for the Minnesota Wild that a big player did sign? Like it validates the market when like we've heard Russo talk about it plenty that around the league, people kind of look around and say like, yeah, I don't know. Minnesota seems cool, but like, can they win? I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, like I mentioned before, yeah, it is validating for what they're building, what they have. And, if he didn't sign, then all of a sudden people are like, if the homegrown guy or the guy that they built around and offered the most money in NHL history didn't want to sign, well, what's wrong with that place? What's the red flag?
Right.
But I think him signing here, obviously, maybe could be the first of more, right? And if he signed and he believes other guys talk around the league, right? But as much as he wants to talk or convince a guy like Tarasenko to waive his no trade clause or whatever, the biggest statement they can make is by winning. And by winning a first round series and doing that and getting that stigma away and getting players on the league to say, okay, if I go to Minnesota or Mini, I can win. And that's the most important thing for most guys, I think, in the career that aren't just trying to establish themselves as NHL players.
And as we talk about that, the roster is getting whittled down. We're starting to see a clearer picture on who might be part of that opening night lineup. Any players that got sent down that I'm not going to say bothered you, but like surprised you, or guys that you thought might get a little bit more of a shake?
I don't think there's anybody that were big surprises. Like I think Lambo's, played well or showed himself well. But I know that the blue line situation is pretty stacked and, there's a chance that Brodin could be back opening night. So like, why would we keep a guy around if he's not going to play in the lineup? You already have Urachek and you have Booyam and everything else. So I think that it pretty much is kind of as expected. There could be some more room if like Nico Sturm isn't ready for the season. He did skate today. He'll be off the next couple of days and come back and skate again, I think, on Friday. But overall, like Hunter Haight being here, not saying a surprise, but it's kind of one that opened your eyes. Like, okay, well, he was on the fourth line today, and he was on the second power play today. Like, interesting that we'll see him in the game on Tuesday night. So he's giving himself a chance if Nico Sturm isn't ready to be able to be the lineup. So no real huge surprises, I don't think. Zuccarello being out for a couple months, opens up a spot, of course, and so does the Sturm injury. But the roster was mostly going to be the roster, came into camp, basically.
At this point of camp, if it comes down to Yurov or Haight, who do you think makes more sense for night one?
Well, I mean, I think big picture wise, like, Yurov is kind of a big part of the future, they hope. And so I think, people want to see him in the lineup. I do think that potentially Haight right now, in terms of readiness for the role that he would be playing, might be a little more ready, from my perspective, just because he had a year pro in AHL. He can win faceoffs. He can play down the lineup. He could do all power play, penalty kill, and stuff. So that is probably my take right at this point. I mean, you're obviously going to get another chance at the wing tonight or last night, based on this podcast comes out, to see what he can do on a wing with some good players. So that'll be a good test for him as well, because he kind of started as a left wing. So let's see where that is as well. So between him and Ogren and Height were the three young players that were vying for spots, and maybe just two make it, maybe three. But I don't think it's over yet for Yurov as far as like making the team's concerned. But I think Haight has definitely showed himself really well in camp.
And has there been any updated, I guess, gauge on whether or not Yurov is open to playing in Iowa, if that's what the team thinks makes the most sense for him to start the year?
Yeah, like I haven't asked him about that. He hasn't, I'm sure if you ask his agent, he wouldn't be happy to do that, or like would rather him not do that. But, Yurov is a great attitude in camp so far. They really like the way he's been willing to learn and understand. He still doesn't know everything yet, right? He's really been a sponge and on the ice later practice. So his attitude has been terrific. I don't think you can, for me, I don't think you can make a long-term decision based on a short-term thing, like using my European out clause to go to play in Europe again, just because you may not make the team out of camp necessarily. Because what if they go to him and say, hey, you play the first week in Iowa, we have a long road trip, we'll call you back up, get a chance, but maybe just get some time there. I don't think he's going to be playing in Iowa all year if he does end up going to Iowa. So I just think the situation, you want to put the guy in the best position to succeed. You don't want to force him in when he's not ready or in the right spot. First confidence is so important. So yeah, I don't think it's done or decided that he's not making the team or he's going to Iowa. But that will have to be a conversation, I'm sure, if it gets to that point. But I just don't think, from my perspective, you can make a long-term decision about your time with the team based upon one decision like this. This is not how they feel about him long-term. This is not how they feel about him forever. It's just more so, let's see who's ready for the 23 spots in this lineup to play opening night.
Very fair. Two quick ones on the defense then before we kick it over to an extended interview. Awesome time chatting with Eddie Olczyk. On the blue line, you mentioned Jonas Brodin could still make it in for the opening night lineup. What is his status? Like, do we have a good idea of how he's tracking, or is it just kind of loosely speculated at this point?
Well, he's been skating for quite a long time. He's his captain's practices, right? And he's starting to get more involved in team practices. And so, like, he's one of those guys just in his career where he can miss 2 months, do one practice and be back, just the way his body heals, the way he plays, the way he's conditioned. But John Hynes today didn't want to close the door on opening night, didn't want to say is for sure going to happen yet, but you're getting more indications watching him and reading between the lines that, he could be ready by then, or he could be ready shortly thereafter. So that's why you don't want to make any big decisions on the blue line or have a guy here when you're not going to play, because if he's here, then he's in the lineup. Then you have Bugio in the lineup, Bogosian or Juracek. And they did start, they're going to have Bogosian play on the left side tonight, maybe later in the week too, with Juracek, to see if one of those guys can play the left side. So it's a left, they have to play together, for example, right? Mm-hmm. So we'll see how that plays out if they go that route where Brodin isn't ready yet.
Makes sense. And then on that, if Brodin isn't ready yet, like, what do you think that the starting six is on defense?
I think you go Faber, Middleton, then Spurgeon, Bouillon, and then perhaps you do Bogosian, Juracek, right? So I think that would be who I would think. We don't have any indication yet that Jack Johnson's making the team. Like, he's on a PTO, you have to sign him to a contract. So I think that if they'll see how this left side works with Bogosian in the next couple of games, but that could be the if scenario if Brodin isn't ready. But it doesn't sound like it'll be very long, unlike a Zuccarello, for example, who'll be gone for the first couple of months.
No, and I mean, you look at the makings of it, though. Brodin healthy and you get everyone else healthy, that is a pretty strong blue line. And we obviously got to see some stuff from Bouillon and Juracek yet this year, but I think there's a lot of optimism to be had around the majority of this roster. I guess we're still just wondering what's going to happen with Ogren, Yurov, some of the young guys on the forward group. But all in all, things are looking up.
I mean, today I think was one of the bigger days or best days in franchise history, quite frankly, if you could think about the long-term ramifications of having him and signing him for 8 years and what it signals and what it shows. And he became for the rest of your career. He talked about like guys like Crosby and Ovechkin playing their entire career with one organization. And it's very rare in all of sports, all of teams. Even Stamkos didn't finish his career in Tampa Bay. You know, Crosby might not finish his career in Pittsburgh, who knows? But like, I'm sure if you're a Wild fan, it's got to be cool to think about him potentially playing for the Wild for his entire career and what it could end up as. So big day for that. And if, you know, the team builds off of the last year's playoffs and Hartman's great year or playoff run, Foligno, barring health, because health is what screwed them up last year, but definitely a good day for the Minnesota Wild organization.
Great day to be a Minnesota Wild hockey fan. With that, let's kick it over to our conversation with Edzo. This interview is brought to you by our friends at Waggle Golf. Waggle Golf believes what you wear on the course should reflect your individuality, who you are, where you're from, your hobbies, interests, and passions. All the stuff that makes you, well, you. That's why every design is inspired by the desire to create a piece of apparel that strikes a chord when you see it, that makes you say, wow, that was made for me. Because in a lot of ways, it was. Ready to get your waggle on? Go to getyourwaggleon.com, throw in promo code SP10 at checkout to take 10% off your entire order. Joining the show today is a man that, I don't know if any of you are like me, you've all heard him at some point on NHL on NBC broadcast. That's kind of the standard that everyone goes with. But he's got a resume that includes 16 NHL seasons. He's been behind an NHL bench. He's been in sportscasting forever, it seems like. And most importantly, beating the odds with his stage 3 colon cancer diagnosis. Thanks so much for joining us, Eddie Olczyk.
Joe, nice to be with you guys. Thanks for having me. And when I got Joe's text and then email, I said, hockey season can't be that far away. Training camps are open up within a couple of days in most locales. So great time of year, and it's going to be a lot of fun. So thank you guys for having me on. I appreciate it.
No problem. Well, like I'm sure you saw, like the link, the name of the podcast is Fellowship of the Rink, a stick tap to our Lord of the Rings kind of fandom. Everybody has their own kind of nerd itch that they scratch sometimes. Like what's your outside the box kind of passion that you keeps you kind of consumed?
Well, horse racing for sure. It's pucks and ponies, and it's been a lot of ponies this summer for yours truly. So that's always been my release. Even when I was, playing in the National Hockey League back in the, back in a long time ago and back in the early 80s. And, I never drank. I never was in that kind of crowd. I mean, I would go out with the guys and, I'd have a good time and do what young people do. But I just, my release and my passion has always kind of been horse racing, and been lucky enough to be a part of NBC's horse racing coverage since 2015, really the summer of 14, and then into 2015 with the Kentucky Derby. And it's been an unbelievable second chapter as far as broadcasting. I really believe it's helped me become a better broadcaster by doing the horse racing. And so for me, there's no doubt, if I have a choice between this and horse racing, well, there's a pretty good chance that horse racing could get the attention of yours truly. Whether I'm sitting, as my wife likes to say, I have an OTB in my living room, but either I got an off-track betting in our house, or I'm working. It's pretty much horse racing and hockey for yours truly.
Well, like in your book, you mentioned early on just how early in your life you kind of started following horses, right? Like you got the track, but at what age? I don't know if your dad took you, or like how did that?
Actually, I think I was 12 or 13, Joe. I think that was the first time I ever went to the track and saw these incredible equine athletes. You get these crazy human beings on there that are, maybe this tall or and probably 115 or 120 pounds, and they're jumping on animals that weigh 1,200 pounds, and they're traveling up to 35 or 40 miles an hour. And I just thought that was incredible, you know. And I mean, I didn't know what I was doing, but just going to the track for the first time, I actually went with a buddy of mine, a teammate of mine, Danny Quillis. We played hockey together. His dad, Tony, the late Tony Quillis, was our team manager and a broken down horse player like I have become. And in between spring hockey games, he asked my parents if, you know, would they mind if he took me to the racetrack in between games for a few hours or whatever. And so I borrowed $20 from my wife, from my mother's purse when I was 12 or 13 years old. And I went to the track and, you know, made a couple of wagers, and I went to the same ticket taker, you know, that was taking my bet, and I didn't win the first couple. And then I think I just played like a $5, get an exact order 1 and 2. And I think I played my hockey number, which was 16. So I played a 1-6 and I think I cashed for like $156 or $157. So I went back to the same window, the same guy. I hand him my ticket. He cashes it in. It comes up $157. And he looks at me and he says, "Hey, how old are you?" And the first thing I thought was, like, he didn't ask me how old I was earlier. And when I first, my first couple of bets. So I just quick-witted. I just said, "Well, you didn't ask me how old I was when I lost." And then the guy, guy was probably, I thought the guy was old at 30, to be honest with you. I thought he was an old guy, but he was probably only 30. And he looked at me and then he kind of smirked a little. He went into his till and pulled out $157 off a $5 wager. And I don't know what, he gave me like 7 singles or whatever, and 50 and 100 or whatever. And I was just like, I give him 3 singles. And I kind of winked at him and I walked away. I tipped the guy at 12 years old. So I've been hook, line, and sinker ever since. Yes, for sure.
Oh my God, that's great. And I'm admittedly more of a casual, Eddie. Like I'd say about 4 days a year, I decide that I'm going to be into horses, and that's leading into the Kentucky Derby.
Yeah.
I got to ask though, like, is the Kentucky Derby like the event if you're really into horses, or is that just like what everyone from the outside gets all excited about? That's more casuals.
No, it's the biggest day. You're right, Scott. It is. It's you don't. How do I want to say this? Like when I'm saying over just my years of people knowing from the hockey world and just in general. I mean, I've had thousands of people ask me about the Kentucky Derby, and I tell everybody the same thing. It should be on your bucket list. Because once you go, I promise you will walk out of there and go, how have I not done this earlier in my life? Like, that's just the reality of it. Like, yeah, the horse racing is unbelievable, but Churchill Downs, I mean, it's changed dramatically over the years. And it's, if you love people, if you love to have a good time, it's an unbelievable weekend if you can get tickets and get down to Louisville or get to wherever you're coming from to get up there. So, but it's for everybody. I think it is truly for everybody. And it is the one day where we know in the horse racing business is that we have the most eyes on us on that particular day, because we have somebody that maybe watches horse racing once a year, once a couple of years, and then maybe you have people that watch it, 3-4 times, or you have somebody like me that watches it probably 7 or 8 hours a day, regardless if I have any skin in the game. So you're catering to a certain audience in the way that we bring the show to people at home. I mean, we hit a lot of different demos. I mean, there's cooking and drinking displays that go on, and there's celebrities there, and there's fashion, and there are a lot of backside stories on horses and how they get their names and ownership groups. And so, I mean, we try to cater and understand that this is a well-rounded audience that are watching us. And but it is I would encourage anybody out there that's thinking about it Don't think anymore. Just react and get a chance to go. And I promise you that you won't be disappointed, because they put on a hell of a show at Churchill.
You go into a lot of detail, obviously, in your book, Beating the Odds. And I think any patient you talk to that's been through cancer has that turning point in their diagnosis, and they're going through chemo. Like, what was the turning point for you where you could have gone either way, of just been like, enough with this,
Well, it's funny you say that, Joe, because about 12 feet from where I am sitting down in my basement is pretty much where I spent the majority of my battle when I was going through my chemo back. And I actually started my chemo on September 11th of 2017 is when I started my first treatment. And that, what word do I want to use? That turning point in my approach and where I hit the crossroads was September 25th. So it was a day after my second treatment, or it was the day of my second treatment. So the 25th of September. And the side effects for anybody that's ever been around somebody that's been in a battle or has unfortunately had to take the chemo, there are a lot of side effects. In many of them, could be the wide range of neuropathy in your hands, your fingers, your toes, nosebleeds, feel like you're swallowing glass, nauseation, not controlling your bowel movements, blood clots, everything. And I had, 5 of the 6 of those that were pretty constant, but I could not control going to the bathroom. I was taking 4 hours of chemo at the hospital every 2 weeks, and then I would come home for 48 hours. I would have a fanny pack on, and it would go off every 90 seconds. And all I would hear would be, every time the pump would go off, I knew that the medicine was going into me. And obviously it's there to help. I knew that, but you're sitting there wondering, well, am I going to die? And B, you're wondering, yeah, okay, I have 6 months of chemo, and then they're going to reassess from there. But when you have the side effects, and I thought I had to go to the bathroom, and then I didn't feel like it, and I stood up, and quite frankly, I took 2 steps and I couldn't hold it. I just absolutely crapped the floor. That's what happened. And that's when I said, I'm done. I quit. And I've never quitted anything in my life. When people told me I wouldn't make the NHL because I was a kid from Chicago, I kept playing the game of hockey, not to prove anybody wrong, but people would tell me, the NHL doesn't take American-born players, and the kid from Chicago is never going to make it. When I was trying out for the U.S. Olympic hockey team in 1984, I was 16 years old, and that was right after the Miracle on Ice in 1980. Obviously, people told me I wouldn't make it because I was too young. When I'm down at the racetrack, if I'm down $200, well, check that. If I'm down $2,000, I'm not giving up, I'm not. So I've never really quitted anything in my life, but that day I was ready to quit because it was testing my will to live. And I just thought, I can't put myself through this. I'm not going to put my family through this. And if I can't get through today, September 25th of 2017, how am I going to get through the next 10 treatments? Because I did 12 and I was starting the second one. But I had the greatest inspirational speech that I ever got. I've been in a lot of locker rooms. I've been able to be around a lot of people that have made differences in locker rooms and in boardrooms and in friendships. But I got the best inspirational talk I ever got was from my wife, Diana. We've been married 37 years now. And when I told her I was ready to bail, I was ready. I had a port with the fanny pack. It was into my chest. I was ready to just bail. And we had a 25-minute conversation, and I cried for 30 of it. And my wife just said, look, you got to fight. You got to fight for me. You got to fight for our 4 kids. And you got to fight for all the people that love you. And I needed that. I needed that inspiration. I needed to be talked off the ledge. And if my wife was not here, I would not be here. I know that 100% because, as I said earlier, when you are in the battle, in the medicine and all the different concoctions, it does play on your mind, not only the physical part, but the mental part. And that's where I was. And that's where I hit my lowest, Joe, and Scott, to the heart of your question. That's where I hit my lowest, was on that day. And after we had the conversation, I just said, okay, I'm going to fight. I'm going to put my head down at night. I'm going to close my eyes. And if I wake up, because when I heard I had cancer, the first thing I thought of was death. That's me. I don't know if that's common, but that was me. And I just said, okay, you know what? I'm just going to grind this thing out. So I kind of put my hockey helmet back on. I got back into that mode of being a hockey guy and just saying, you know what? Okay, I'm going to battle each and every day. And the last thing I will say on that is I felt, even though it was testing my will, when my wife had this conversation with me, I was very much at peace with what was going on. I'm glad. I said it then. I'll say it today. I'll say it to the last breath I have in my body. I'm glad I am the one that got sick. I don't know why I got sick. I don't know how. No family history. I absorbed it, and I was the one that had to do it, because knowing what I know now and what we all battle through, it would kill me to know that somebody is going through that. And that drove me. I was at peace because I learned a long time ago to always let the most important people in your life know how you feel about them. Your family, your friends, the people you work with. And I've always done that. And I just felt like I was at peace when it came to that. And I think that helped me. I think that once I got over that major pothole of wanting to quit after I, crapped the floor, okay, like I'm not alone, because when you're diagnosed with the disease, I wanted to go under a rock, to be honest with you. Like, I didn't want to burden anybody. At that time, I was doing local TV in Chicago with the Blackhawks, and I was doing TV for NBC. I would have liked to just not put a burden on anybody and let anybody know. But, when you're in the so-called, public eye, and it's kind of hard to go underground. And so I think for me, having been at peace and having my wife and that caretaker be there for me, and look, I had family and friends, hockey and horse racing. I mean, I got lucky, and a team of doctors led by Dr. Michael Ruckham and Dr. Michael Terry. They led my team to get me back and being healthy now for almost 7 years, clean and clear from stage 3 colon cancer. So I don't know why. I don't know how I beat it. But my wife and I try to make sure is that as a community, we need to make sure we're not only taking care and reaching out to the people that are ill, but we also have to make sure is that we're reaching out to the caretakers and caregivers, because I never saw my wife weak. I never saw my wife scared. I never saw my wife worried around me. I'm sure there were times when she was away from me, is where she let her guard down and was wondering, well, is my husband, what's going to happen to my husband? So we need to make sure that we are also looking out after the caretakers and caregivers, because they are going through a lot themselves. And I'm lucky. I got lucky, and after all this, I got 4 grandkids now, and life is good, because if you don't have your health, quite frankly, you have nothing. And I continue to fight, because I could sit here and unfortunately name off 10 to 12 people in my life, and I'm talking about like in my life that are in the battle, and it is it hurts. It hurts a lot, but have to show strength, have to show positivity, have to show support, and continue to let them know and talk to them and give them all the support that I can or we can. So I appreciate you guys allowing me to kind of give a Cliff Notes version of my story and the ups and downs of being in the battle. But it does test your will when you are in the battle. There's no doubt about it.
So obviously a incredible fight and incredible battle, and you couldn't have done it, you mentioned, without Diana. And my favorite question to ask people is how you met your wife. It's always a fun question or a fun anecdote here and there. And I know you have a really great story about how you met yours. And I'm doing a story on like the charter life now for players and going on. And it's a whole different stage of level back when you were playing, right? And so how did you meet Diana?
Yeah. I like to say sometimes that we just celebrated her birthday a couple of months ago, and I said, "Yeah, we met on a horse and buggy when we were going from Chicago to Detroit." And of course, then I get a Jimmy Choo flying at me from about 25 feet. But so I was a rookie in the National Hockey League, playing with my hometown team, a team I lived and died with and for, the Blackhawks. I was drafted by my hometown team back in the '84 draft, and that year in February, I think it was early March. It was early March of 1985, my rookie year. We had played an afternoon game in Chicago, and at that time, again, I mean, Joe, you kind of touched on it. Like you flew commercial. Like you drove to the airport, you left your car there, you went to the gate. Now, obviously, security is way different now than it was then, but you just walked through, and your team. Your team services guy would have a boarding pass for you. And when you're a rookie, you sit in the middle seat. I mean, that's just the reality of it. So that day after we played at home, the afternoon game, there was a lot of traffic heading to O'Hare Airport from downtown, the old Chicago Stadium on Madison Street. And half the team did not make the flight because there was a major accident. So the flight, the commercial flight, they're not holding the plane, like they're leaving. So I was like, maybe 13 or 14 guys made it and the other half didn't. So they had to come later. So I get on this plane, American Airlines. And as I'm walking on, I got my boarding pass and I quite frankly saw the most stunning woman I've ever seen in my life. Now, again, I was 18 years old and, I had been around, but I had, I kind of thought that like my heart stopped. I mean, that's the first thing that I saw. And then I saw her name tag, my wife's name tag. And as you mentioned, Joe, Diana, that's my mom's name. So that got my attention right off the bat, like Diana. And then I got close enough to see her maiden name, and her maiden name is Vickers. And I'm like, I grew up on a street called Mick Vickers for about 15 years of my life. I'm like, this has got to be, So what I did was quickly, good scouting by me. It was a big ass plane. Like I think it was like a 747, and it wasn't really full. But the catch is that my wife was living in New York. She deadheaded from New York to Chicago to just work the Chicago to New York flight, the turnaround. So she didn't work. She just flew from New York to Chicago to work the flight back from O'Hare to LaGuardia. So they had called her like in the afternoon and said, "We need you to work." So it was like last minute. So I get on the plane. I kind of scope out what section, she was kind of working there. And to her story, she said I ordered like maybe 8 or 10 orange juices or whatever. Which, I don't know if it was that many, but I just kind of talked to her or whatever, and I didn't know how old she was. I didn't know any of that. And sure enough, we made contact. We talked on the phone for a couple of weeks, and then she came in actually a month later, the night before my very first NHL playoff game. We were playing the Red Wings in the playoffs, and we went out the night before. We went out for some pizza at a place called Barnaby's here in the suburbs of Chicago. And lo and behold, I had my first playoff game. I scored my very first 2-goal game in my NHL career the very next night. So I figured, well, what the hell? We might as well get married, And sure enough, 3 years later, we ended up getting married. And here we are I guess 40 years later. So yes, let me say this. Yes, it was love at first flight.
There you go.
Ooh, what
Great
a
line.
tagline.
Yeah.
So Eddie, we're inundated in all of the noise. We're here in the market, but I got to know from a neutral observer, what's going through your mind when you see that Kirill Kaprizov has turned down the Minnesota Wild's contract offer that would have made him the highest paid player in NHL history?
Well, I mean, if that is indeed, factual, again, there's always two sides to every story. And again, just on the surface, if that is indeed the case and he's turned it down, and he has every right to, and if he decides he wants to play it out, he becomes an UFA, right? An unrestricted free agent. And, he can do and what he pleases. So, I mean, he's earned the right to turn down or, renegotiate, so to speak, or whatever it is. The first thought I had when I heard it was, that's a lot of cake. I mean, there's no doubt about it. And if he did say no, then maybe my first thought is, well, maybe he wants a 2-year deal or a 3-year deal and not necessarily, an 8-year deal. Okay. So that was my kind of first thought, because it seems like starting to maybe trend a little bit like the NBA, where you're getting these guys signing, 2 and 3 year deals, short-term deals. Like, those are short-term deals. There's no doubt about it. So that was the first thing I thought of. And then honestly, Scott and Joe, I thought the next thing is that, wow, if he actually did turn down that kind of money, he wants to play it out, and he wants to see what the open market will bear moving forward. So as a former player and a coach in Pittsburgh, and having been in meetings on both sides as a player and as a coach, there's no doubt, like when you have, elite world class, and Kirill Kaprizov is that. There's no doubt. He is a unbelievable player, and one of the top players in the National Hockey League. Is that when these type of players do drive the bus and they get to this situation, it puts ownership and management in a real spot, So I don't know. You guys tell me. Is he have a no movement or no trade in this deal that he has right now?
Oh,
he does.
Full no move. Okay, so like you get to a situation where, and look it's no different than what's going on, in Edmonton right now, obviously with Connor McDavid. So I think as an organization, you have to weigh. Let me go back to Kaprizov. Was I surprised that he turned it down? Yeah, I mean, I guess I was, because that's a lot of cake for sure. But if he wants to go and test the market, then he has that ability to do that, regardless of what the Wild want to do. From the management side and in the team wise, is you're in a spot now where what realistically, if you decide to go to the player and say, hey, look, like, it sure don't seem like you want to sign here. I mean, there's no other way to say it. I mean, we can't give you 19 or 20 or whatever, whatever the max is. So you're in a spot now where can you afford, quite frankly, because that's what could happen. We saw what happened with Mitch Marner here recently, and he ended up signing, which I thought was kind of interesting. I know he got the extra year, but that's for another debate. Is can you afford to lose him for nothing? Like that's what it comes down. That's what it comes down to. If you're not only, I'm not saying you're not only in Minnesota Wild, you're the Edmonton Oilers, or in 2 years you're the Colorado Avalanche with Cale Makar. Can you? But when is that line drawn in the sand by the team? Like, is it the year prior? Is it the summertime? Is it, we're gonna play this guy And then, we're going to go to him at Christmas time. And if he doesn't want to sign, then we're going to go and make a deal. Now, the team that's going to try to get him, is that somewhere that, that he's willing, to sign, so to speak? I mean, look at Mikko Rantanen is kind of the example. Now, he didn't have, and correct me if I'm wrong, he did not have a no movement in his deal, because he ended up in Carolina, right? And he didn't want to sign there, if I'm not mistaken. And then he ends up obviously, in Dallas when they couldn't sign him. So it's an interesting dynamic, but long-winded. I was a tad surprised, but then again, obviously he might have his sights, or his representation has their sights on somewhere else. I mean, really, at the end of the day, I mean, that's a lot. It's a lot of money, and if you wanted to stay, again, things can change. But right now, he holds all the cards, and he will continue to hold all the cards until something changes.
Well, and my biggest question for someone like you, Eddie, 'cause you've said it, right? You've seen both sides of this. You've been in the management side. You've been in the player position. With all the work Bill Guerin has done to fix the culture for this team, like that was a big edict with the buyouts for Parise and Suter.
Yeah.
Talk to me about the players' point of this, because per the great reporting of Joe Smith and Mike Russo, like this story broke when Kaprizov was coming off the ice for captain's practice. Like, what are the guys in the locker room thinking as they sit and watch this play out?
I think that, I mean, look, I would imagine the majority of the players in that room are like, are you out of your mind? Like,
Marco Rossi just had to beg for a 5x3.
Yeah, right. I mean, like, they're probably sitting there going, "Oh, I mean, what an offer!" Right? But players are very intelligent. They know what's going on. It's funny. I mean, you talk about salaries and salary disclosure. We just lost Bob Goodnow, who was the NHL Players Association executive director, and Bob was hard nosed. He was I think he was awesome to the players. I think a lot of players are still, obviously, when you don't work, you don't get paid. And I think there are a lot of players that lost. I mean, we as a union, we lost a lot of money, but when we fought for salary disclosure and we fought for our likeness, the league, the players, along with the league, obviously, it is in a much better place now than it was in the late 80s and early 90s, or it's just the reality of it. So when you think about salary disclosure, everybody knows what's going on. But I got to think, if I'm a teammate of Kaprizov and he again allegedly turns that offer down, you sit there and go, well, what are the chances that that he's going to be here this whole season? And that's where John Hines inside that room, if nothing changes and he's a member of the Wild and they just start their season or whatever, players just need to play and not worry about certain things. But at the end of the day, I don't think that there's any doubt that you are thinking about it if you're his teammate. And look, whatever he wants to do, you're hey, man, I wish you the best for you and your family, and whatever you want to do, we're good. So I don't think it's that big, but I do think it is. Regardless of what anybody says, I think it does become a distraction and a talking point. And you could see it in Edmonton too, right? I don't know the latest, but Connor McDavid could play it out too. So maybe that will help, distract a little bit of, what's going on in St. Paul with obviously Connor McDavid going into the last year of his contract.
There's such a cluster in the Western Conference, and you saw it in the playoffs last year, all bunched up. Their teams like Utah is coming up. St. Louis made that run last year. Minnesota's here. Seems like there's a lot of teams all clustered together. Like how close in your mind are the Wild to breaking through finally out of that first round and becoming maybe a team that can go, I'm not saying win the Stanley Cup, but I'm saying go on a little bit of run and be a factor, I guess, in the West.
Yeah, stylistically under Billy and Johnny Hines, I think that they do have that type of team. They've got, obviously, you look on the back end and led by Brock Faber, and obviously with Eriksson Ek and Kaprizov, and I mean, you have, leadership and Foligno, so you can play. They can play a 5-4 game, I believe, when healthy, and then they can also, they can play a playoff type of game and have to win a game 2-1 or 3-2. I mean, I think that they're going in the right direction. There's no doubt. I mean, Billy's done a hell of a job, and I always wish him well, because I mean, we never played together. He always chased me around the rink and tried to beat the hell out of me all the time, but I tried to explain to him, like, I'm an older American, guy, like, you should kind of take care of me a little bit, so but I think that they're certainly on the right there. I think they're on the right path. I do. But this will be, again, I go back to what we were talking about. It's like, okay, if they can't sign Kaprizov, what can they get, and how can they impact their team? And, would you have to maybe go in a little bit of a different direction in some areas? Yeah, probably. Because you don't replace a guy like that. I mean, we know that. So, but I like what they're doing. I like their team. I think a lot of John Hines as a coach, and even with my pal Tony DaCosta still behind the bench there, handing sticks out and busting my chops all the time. Yeah, I think that the Wild they're in very good hands. That's for sure.
And some people may not realize, a lot probably don't realize, before we had the prankster, the media darling, a guy that's going to probably be inducted in the Hall of Fame here in short order, you actually were one of Marc-Andre Fleury's first NHL coaches. What was that like?
Yeah, I'm proud to say I was his first.
And Crosby's first coach too, right? Crosby's first coach.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. In spite of me being their first coach, they've done pretty well, to be honest with you. I love, like, myself and Keith Wayner, who was our public, our PR man, our media relations man in Pittsburgh at the time, Quito. We refer, and we still to this day, we refer to Marc-Andre Fleury as the kid. When he came up, like, he's the same. I think I mentioned this on one of the broadcasts last year, and it was very sincere and from the heart, is that I saw him come in as an 18-year-old, and he is the same. He is the same today as he was when he came in as an 18-year-old. And obviously a father, a husband, Stanley Cup winner, regarded as one of the best teammates and one of the top goaltenders we've seen in the National Hockey League in the last 25, 30 years. But he is as genuine and as respectful is probably the one word that I would use to talk about Marc-Andre Fleury. And I got a chance to see him last year when I was in St. Paul for a TNT game, and actually walked in together, which was great. I mean, it just, it just brought back a lot of memories. And, that first year, and then his second year, the team was struggling financially. And at that time, when you played and you were a first round pick, there were a lot of bonuses tied into game action and being on the NHL roster. And unfortunately, fortunately, but unfortunately, because I was coaching and we were sending down our best goaltender, wasn't allowed to have our best goalie at that particular time. To see the reaction from him the couple of times that we had to send him down, I think he had a 40 or a 50 save performance in Pittsburgh, I think in the 04-05 season, and we had to send him down because he was getting a little bit too close to his bonuses. And it was the first time that the Penguins had beaten the Flyers in Philadelphia in 10 years or whatever it was. I think it was actually the 05-06 season when that happened. But anyways, so he plays the game at Philadelphia. He wasn't supposed to play. Actually, the game he played, Jocelyn Thibault was supposed to be the starter. And a guy by the name of Konstantin Koltsov in warmups hit him in the throat with a slap shot. So I'm in the coach's room, and Keith Wayner comes in, and he comes in and he goes, Edzo, I got some good news and bad news. He goes, what do you want first? I'm like, okay, I got to think about this. I go, well, give me the bad news first. He goes, Coltsy just hit Joss in the throat, and he's having a real difficult time. And I said, let me guess the good. And he goes, yeah, the kid's playing. And I go, all right, let's get him in there. And he had an unbelievable night. And I think that was the game that Sid, I think Doc Emmert was calling the game. And he said, with the game on his stick, you know, he scored and we won in overtime. And we got to within, because we started off rough that year. We were 0-5-2. And at that time, I think we got to like 7-9-3 or something. We got to within 2 games. And after the game, I begged Craig Patrick if we can bring him back to Pittsburgh, because we played Philly like 3 nights later, and they couldn't do it. They wouldn't do it. They didn't want to pay him his bonuses and whatever. And so we had a car take him from Philadelphia after having an unbelievable game down to Wilkes-Barre Scranton. We lost to Philadelphia a couple of nights later, and then eventually, you know, maybe a month or 6 weeks later, I ended up losing my job. But like those conversations with him of trying to explain to him and telling him, look, you're a great goalie. You're going to be a great goalie. Like, this is not about you. Like that was the one thing that I tried to emphasize to him. And we had, I'm not say hundreds, but we had 80, 90 conversations over the course of those couple of years that we were together, of just letting him know, because I didn't want him to not think that he was not good enough, you know, and that was kind of the message for me, to let him know. And those were hard conversations. They were emotional. There were tears at times on both sides of the desk. I mean, because you're trying to tell a kid like, hey, like there's just certain things in professional sports, regardless of how awesome you played and how great you are for our team, is you can't control. And I think he understood, obviously, you know, his representation and his agency, I'm sure we're telling him all this. So, you know, that, but he long-winded again. I mean, he's awesome. He just was flat out awesome. Couldn't be more proud of what he was and what he became and what his legacy will be. And I was just so happy. I think it was Alan Walsh, I think, was his agent at that particular time. And I think he was pretty much his whole career. But I'm sure Alan explained that to him over the years of what was going on with the financial part of it. But yeah, there's no doubt. I get that question often. I became a part of the Hall of Fame selection committee last summer. And, you know, I get people that, you know, walk by me and go, hey, you're going to vote for this guy? You're going to vote for that guy? And I let, you know, the names that they throw around. It's like, oh, yeah, I think I know, you know, a Hall of Famer from not. And, yeah, he gets a lot of attention, and rightfully so. And I don't think there's any doubt that, as I've said before when I was a broadcaster, that he is certainly on his way to the Hockey Hall of Fame. And I'm not going to walk back on those words now just because I'm a part of the committee.
A couple of quick ones before I let you go, and thanks so much for doing this. A lot of fun conversation here. A couple of quick ones. My colleague Mike Russo gives me so much crap for my Diet Coke intake per day. One of my vices I have with you. So just really quickly, what is your record for number of Diet Cokes you've consumed in one day?
Well, I was a Diet Coke guy, then I became a DP guy, and I think when I was coaching in Pittsburgh, I probably was averaging. And at that time, I think they had like Diet Pepsi with a twist. Remember, they had the lemon in there or whatever. It was great. I think I was probably at about. Honestly, I was probably at about 18 a day for probably about 10 years. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I was expecting 8, not 18.
Yeah. But I'm completely on water now. I don't, like, I just have changed. I've gone on a kind of a crazy, I I don't want to say diet. I don't like that word, but I've stopped eating bread, rice, pasta, and pizza for the last 367 days. And I've lost 30, I think I've lost 33 pounds. And I miss a little pasta here, a little pizza here, but I was just like, I was ballooning up enough where I just said, you know what? I'm doing the same workout I've been having for the last 15 years. And I know it's all in moderation, but I just decided to go that way. So it's working for me right now, but yeah, no more DC or DP. That's for sure.
Very fair. And cutting all that out of the diet, is that helping the golf game at all?
I used to play a lot of golf, Scott, but I kind of went cold turkey for about 12 years where I couldn't get off the tee, and I just said, you know what, I'd rather sit in my living room and play the horses, and that's kind of what become my my passion. So, but I have played a little bit more. Both my all of my boys, my 3 boys, my daughter doesn't play, but they play a lot of golf. So we've had a couple of nice days where we've been out together and play. And my dad is still alive, and he plays a lot of golf. So I played a lot more in the last year than I have probably in the last 20 years, to be honest with you. And if I can't put a bow on that story about when I borrowed the $20 from my mom's purse when I went to the racetrack when I was 12 or 13, I lost my mom almost 4 years ago. And when my mom was on her way, I whispered in her ear, I said, "Mom, I just want to let you know something." And she kind of shook her head, and I said, I just want to let you know, the first time that I went to the racetrack with Mr. Quillis and Danny, I borrowed $20 from your purse, and she wasn't opening up her eyes that much at that particular time, and she kind of had her head on her shoulder, and she kind of looked at me, and she said, "I know, and you did it a few other times too, didn't you?"
Yeah.
I lost it because I knew, I was going to lose my mom, and she knew, and she never said anything. And I felt better that I told her, and I think I felt even probably better that she knew that I borrowed a couple of bucks from her to head to the racetrack when I was a kid. So, so that's, I put a bow on the broken down horse player when I was 12 years old story.
Cleared conscience for sure.
Absolutely.
Well, final question brought to you as always by our good friends at Waggle Golf. First, make sure you head over to getyourwaggleon.com, throw in promo code SP10 to take 10% off your entire order. I want you to give me 3 names here. It could be dead or alive, it could be athlete, celebrity, whoever. I want you to give me the names that round out your dream golf foursome.
Oh my goodness. What about Secretariat? Can I bring Secretariat to?
Yes.
No card needed for Secretariat. No card needed for that.
Oh my gosh. You know what? I don't think I've ever been asked a question like that before. So I'm kind of like flustered, to be honest with you. I'm thinking about. I was drafted the same year. Again, here I'm dropping names here, but 1984, I was drafted by my hometown team, as I mentioned, the Blackhawks. I was the 3rd overall pick. I know it was a lot of news because I was a Chicago kid or whatever, but I did get trumped by the Chicago Bulls that year in 1984. They selected a guy by the name of Michael Jordan, 3rd overall. So I played golf behind Michael. I played golf in front of Michael. We ran a little bit together back in the day. I would say that he would have to be at the front of the list for playing in that foursome. The other 2, oh my gosh, Bobby Clark was my idol as a kid. Even though I was a diehard Blackhawk fan, that's why I wore 16, because of Bobby Clark. So I would have to put Clarkie in there for sure. And oh my gosh, Who would be the third person? I was playing my rookie year 85 Western Conference final. I think at that time it was the Campbell Conference. I was playing my rookie season. It was game 3 against Edmonton at the old Chicago Stadium. And I'm skating around in warm-ups. We're down 2-0. I'm skating around in warm-ups. And I look in the corner to the left of Murray Bannerman, and I see this gentleman, and I'm like, I can't believe it. And as I skate around and I circle back, this guy's clapping, he's smiling, and I'm like, as I skate by him, I go, holy cow, it's the Kansas Comet. I go, Gale Sayers is watching me play, watching us play against the Edmonton Oilers. And I go, Gale Sayers. I'm like, it doesn't get any bigger or better than that. So I don't know if the late, great Kansas Comet played golf, but I would have to say Gale Sayers would finish out the foursome as long as Secretariat can kind of follow up. But knowing him, he would be 5 or 6 holes ahead of us because of his triumphant Belmont win back in the 70s.
I like that, but you know what? I know you felt like you were put on the spot. You still did a great job, but I'll leave the offer out there that if you want to come back on later this winter, maybe a little preamble for the Olympics, we'll give you a fresh slate. You can put some thought into it and give us your second list.
Okay. I'd like to think I'm a man of my word. So if you guys want to have me on, whenever, I'd be happy to have a chance to really think about that. So that's like the question when I'm working with Kenny Albert and Brian Boucher and our illustrious stat man Benny Boma, when we travel together all the time. Sometimes we'll play some games, and it's like the last one we played is like, who give me your Rolodex. Who's kind of the most, whatever. So like that was kind of one of those that was we were talking about. So I'm like scrolling through my phone. Who in the hell is
MJ's up there?
So, yeah. So all right. Well, that sounds good. That's I agree to the agreement. If you guys have me back, I'll be a little bit more prepared. But I'd like to think that's a pretty damn good list, to be honest.
That's a very good list. I liked it before you took Secretariat off. I thought that was a great pick.
No slow play for Secretariat.
Well, I have been called a horse's ass before, and I mean many times, I'm sure. And considering I played at the old Met Center back in the day for the Blackhawks and the Maple Leafs, I'm sure there were some at that time young North Star fans that probably didn't like me and probably still don't like me, but that's okay. I mean, we love the game of hockey. So, at the end of the day, that would be a hell of a foursome with Secretariat, I would say. And I would say this is that you look at that foursome and Secretariat, and I agree. I'm asking that same question. What the hell am I doing in that with those people? And that equine athlete, by the way.
Well, we'll really enjoy this. So thanks so much for doing it. And I know season's starting pretty soon, but we'll hit you up at a rink sometime soon. So
look forward to it. Thanks for having me, guys. Appreciate it.
Yep. Thank you.
Hey, as always, thank you all so much for tuning in. The season's here. Hockey starts in 1 week. The Minnesota Wild opener is a week from Thursday. Everyone get jacked. Home opener Saturday. We got Gophers opening up again, as I mentioned, this Friday and Saturday at home with Michigan Tech. And next week, we got the Thursday, Friday matchups with Boston College, which should be very fun. I personally, James Haggins is my early front runner for the Hobie Baker. So that's one that if you're picking one weekend to come out and watch, it's got to be that one, or we got Penn State in November, and with them bringing in some of those CHL names, and everyone's going to be talking about Gavin McKenna, it's going to be a must-have ticket. So if you haven't already bought your tickets for any of the games this season, you better get out there and do it quick before people see how good the Gophers are and before they see how good all of these teams are that are going to be coming and donning the 3M Arena at Mariucci this season. Check us out if you are a new listener, please do, subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, you name it. But also check us out on our YouTube channel, The SOTA Pod. We have full episodes across all of the different shows here on our channel, not just Fellowship of the Rink. We have other shows that key in a little bit more specifically on the Minnesota Wild. We have some that focus on Wild prospects and NHL draft content. And we've even got some that are more solely dedicated to Minnesota college hockey. Check all of that out, or just go there if you want the highlights and you want to listen to only interviews and you don't want the rest of the fun here that we talk about. But until next week, you stay classy, stay to hockey.